Hi, thank you. This is welcome to the Education Planning Committee, December 4th at 4:38 p.m. Call to order. And to start, I'd like to introduce our host, Don Emmermeyer, Victor Campus Director, and invite him to come up and update the trustees on what's happened since we've been here last.
Welcome to the Victor Campus Center. Great to see you all today. Give you a little update. Start with this past summer. Talk about what we've been doing this fall and what we're looking forward to in the spring. Summer, two major activities that the campus centers worked on. One is registration. We assist the advising office with advising and registration of students. Take a lot of phone calls, a lot of phone registration appointments, in-person appointments. This year, I don't think any of us worked on group registrations. They haven't been quite as popular the last couple of years. Typically, we've ended up with just one or two students signing up for those. So we stuck with the individual appointments, and those have gone very well. We also call all the rematriculated students and make sure that they get assistance with registration, answer any questions they might have, try to make sure they're comfortable with coming back to college. The other major activity that we do is our summer STEAM camps, which we've talked about before in the past. This summer we had camps in Victor, Newark, and Geneva. Victor was the week of July 8th through the 12th. Our theme is STEAM in Motion. Students worked on robotics projects, electronics, anything that produced motion, and had a lot of fun with that. We had 8 campers that attended. The daily schedule was 8:30 to 3, same for all the other centers. Grades 7 through 9, students going into 7th, 8th, or 9th. Some students actually were 6th graders. If they, the parents said that they really wanted to attend, we let them in. This year we provided a lunch. Talk about that a little bit in a couple of minutes. Our maximum is 15 campers per camp. Generally, that's about the size that the classroom will allow or lab. So that's a good number for us. This year our cost was $300 per week. And some of that actually went to providing the lunch. And we also provided scholarships, 2 scholarships at each campus center. Our campus center didn't actually have anybody that took the scholarship, but some other centers did take those. Students didn't particularly like the lunches, to be honest with you. After a couple of days, students started packing their own lunch. Happened at the other centers as well. It did add to the cost. Really brought our cost up as well. So I think next year we're planning to scrap that, go back to a bag lunch. We did that the year before and they seemed to like that. We should bring the cost down to $250. So it might help a little with enrollment. And speaking of enrollment, our enrollment here in Victor this fall was actually pretty good. We had 129 students. Those are individual students attending here. That went up from 101 the previous year. That was a 27.7% increase. The FTE, we went from 19.5 the previous year to 26.2. So that was an increase of 34.4%. So we're really happy about that. We hope that trend will continue. Those numbers were as of November 15th. So a couple of weeks ago. And the overall college enrollment, as you probably know, has been great. Dr. Bates will certainly tell you more about that. How our classes worked out this year. Traditional in-person courses, we had 11. Those are kind of your typical in-class instruction that we've known for years. We had 1 in-person remote course. That was an English class that was in person. Some students signed up in person, some were remote. Most of our classrooms and labs have monitors in it for that type of instruction. HighFlex, probably most of you know what HighFlex is. If you don't, it's in-class instruction. You have that option as a student. You can attend remotely, real time, or you can watch a recording later, basically as an online option. We had 11 of those courses this fall. Synchronous, a little bit old school, but there's some students that still prefer it. Those are classes that are synchronous with other centers. Typically, the instructors at the main campus and might broadcast out to the other centers. We had 2 courses like that. A few students did sign up for those. Say some students a lot of driving from Monroe County, so they come here to have it all the way to Canandaigua. So that was good. Again, 2 of our courses that 2 of our programs that we have in Vector, Engineering Science, and Networking and Cybersecurity have very busy online options at this point. Basically, since COVID, we've put those out there and very popular. They're attracting students from around the state. I just registered a student yesterday. It's 4 hours away from our campus, so that was good. But also it's available for students that live in this area, so students are definitely taking advantage of that. Ongoing activities that we do this fall and we'll do in the spring. We have on-campus student visits. Those are available every Thursday and Friday, 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Prospective students and family members can visit the campus, get a tour, meet with staff and instructors, and get information about our programs. Those students tend to be very serious about coming here, which is great. So we like to spend a lot of time with them. Either they're already planning to come here or they're choosing between us and another college. So roll out the red carpet for those folks. Activities that we've done this fall, we've had a number of visits. We had a campus center fall visit day in October. We had a visit with the PTAC seniors. The Urban League of Rochester visited in November. They went to the main campus first and then in the morning. In the afternoon, they came to Vector. So those went well. Let's see what else we have here. We participated with the big admissions fall open house. That was in November. I think several hundred people showed up for that, so that was a great event. And we do that every year. Campus centers participate in that. Let's see. Oh, we also had an interesting presentation from one of our graduates from FLCC who went on and eventually got a PhD in mathematics. So we did a presentation on AI. He's involved in AI development, quantum computing. So it was actually pretty fascinating. Very inspiring for our students. So that was great. Bloomfield, we are promoting business from area high schools. Bloomfield was scheduled to come here in November. Unfortunately, they canceled. We plan to meet with them in the spring. We hope that other area schools will take advantage of that this spring. Looking forward to spring semester. We'll do admitted student calls, REMAC calls that we talked about a few minutes ago. We'll have several new student registration appointments. Those actually have begun already. All the campus centers are involved with that. There'll be a spring visit day, missions, acceptance student day, another big open house event at the main campus. We'll visit with PTAC freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. We're hoping to put together a financial aid workshop. I believe the financial aid department is planning to go to area schools. Hopefully we can get a workshop here at our campus center. And we We're planning another visit in the spring with Urban League, Rochester. Community education, that's something we've been working on pretty hard in the last few years. For this spring, we actually were able to plan several months ahead. And that's something we discussed at our advisory board meeting, trying to get the word out. So we've got planning for a successful retirement. That's in January. That's going to run for 4 weeks. We get our electronics 2 nights in February. Intro to 3D printing. That's going to run for 4 weeks in March. Basic computer skills and security. That'll run 2 nights in March. And we're also trying to get a notary public prep course. Hopefully we'll get that together. So what's changed a little bit this time is we're able to plan several months ahead of time, which is a little tricky, to be honest, trying to get commitment from instructors. But we were able to post information in Ontario County Magazine, Victor Voice newsletter, and we'll also post on social media, Victor Farmington Library, and with local community organizations. So we hope that those publications will help that out. Career Expo and Job Fair. That's kind of our big event that we have in the spring. We started that came out of a 2021 advisory board meeting. There was interest in providing career education for area students. Didn't seem to be enough, so probably do something here, do something about that. And we started this Career Expo, career education for students and their family members. And the first one we held a couple of years ago was mostly just informational for these students. It was very well attended. I think we had over 70 students and guests attend that. This past year, we decided to basically have a job fair. Well, we had tech businesses here, and it turned out very, very well. We had 14 tech companies that participated this past spring and had over 80 students and guests attend. Other college departments were here: admissions, workforce and career solutions, academic advising, career and transfer services. Our staff and faculty participated. And I got a chance to go around and talk to all the tech companies that were here. They loved being here. They were excited about coming back this year. So we'll have them back and we'll get some more companies. They did tell me that they received resumes from some of our students and looked like there's some good job prospects for them. So that worked out very well. We're also going to plan a smart systems technologies information evening. Dr. Sam Samantha that runs that program and I are going to be working on putting that together. It's going to be basically an informational evening for us to discuss this program, talk about the academic side of things, cooperative education. I'm sure you've all heard about his program, student benefits and employer benefits to that. And then we're also going to discuss this new initiative, the Adult Student Employer Partnership Initiative. I think Dr. Bates or somebody here will be talking more about that. We'll talk about the benefits of that program and how that will help employers with their employees and hopefully get them connected to our college. And our audience for that looks like technology companies, school counselors, and workforce alumni. Be invited to that. The last thing, something we've been working on for the last couple of years is a partnership with Victor Central School District. It's in the exploration phase. We're still working on that. But basically how they started is I think they've had to send their students to BOCES and Wayne Lakes BOCES. So long bus ride there, long bus ride back. So a lot of time is spent on the bus. So they talked to us since we're in their backyard. It really only takes a couple minutes to get from the high school to our campus center. And the hopes is that we will actually be able to provide some educational programming here for them. We have the advanced manufacturing program that goes to smart systems technologies. So that is a possibility. Workforce and Career Solutions has a virtual welding program that may be of interest. I'm not sure if you've seen that or heard of it, but you will if you've had it before. Cloud computing, coursework towards healthcare studies, architectural technology, which we have here, networking and cybersecurity. So it's a lot of options for them. I hope that they take advantage of that. And I hope is hopefully this fall. I hope that's a possibility at this point, but hopefully we'll make that happen. So that's it for me. Any questions? Comments? Just go ahead.
Done. The job fair, and I'm glad that they're being well received in the community. How is it different from the old ones pre-COVID that used to be here?
I'd say it's a lot more informational. We ask the companies to bring stuff for students to look at. So we're inviting younger groups of students to come as well, high school students, et cetera. So it's also for our students. And we opened it last year to the general public if they wanted to apply for a job. They end up being mostly area students than our students, but so companies had more interesting things for students to look at. They spent more time explaining, doing career exploration, that type of thing. But they also accepted, resumes and talked to students about jobs. So it's kind of an interesting combination. Employers, tech companies seem to really enjoy it. So do it again.
Thank you.
Yes, first of all, thank you.
Yep.
Very impressive in terms of the activities. I recall last year, even more, you seem to be busier than even the year before when you reported out, so thanks for that. I just had questions about some of the calendar gaps. So when this semester is done, there's a period of mid-late December till January. Does anything happen on this campus during those 5-6 weeks?
Mostly advising and registration.
Okay,
So I'm involved in a lot of that. So the center will be open for students that actually want to come here to register.
right.
Keep doing registrations on the phone.
It's not an immersion program or a temporary 3-4 week kind of opportunity. It's really explained.
Right. There are, we do have a winter semester, obviously.
Right.
Don't have courses here at Victor for winter, but, and we're planning all these events that we're working on, so.
Okay. And with regard then to next summer, in addition to the camp, summer courses are also available here or not necessarily?
The summer courses at the college have ended up online.
Okay,
It's just the way it's kind of handed out. It's a lot of students actually outside the college that take courses.
okay,
So, back in the day, we did have a number of summer courses here. Students, what I understand, though, particularly like to attend in person in the summer.
sure.
So, most of it's online.
So summer is really a bit of a dormant timeframe other than the camp.
Camp and registration
Registration.
activity.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I guess my final question, if I could, would be the advisory board. I'm curious as to how often you might meet with them, how you might utilize them.
So we meet with them twice a year.
Okay.
Each of the campus centers do. We typically post some questions about the activities that are of interest. This big career expo came out of one of those meetings. The kind of the follow-up on promotion for the community education courses came out of a kind of a long discussion about that. And took a while to get that going, but we took the comments that some of the members brought up and try to make them happen.
Good, good. Thank you. Go ahead.
Questions? thank you. You've been very busy and we appreciate your hospitality.
Hello?
Hi, Linda.
Hi, our apologies.
All right, we'll let you know when you can, do your presentation.
Hey, moving on, a review of the November 6th, 2024 committee minutes. Are there any, everybody's review them, any adjustments, corrections, recommendations? Hearing none, move on to Dr. Abatis and the likeness on Rome.
I'll give you a verbal report based on the spring and winter enrollment comparison report as of just past Friday. So for winter, overall headcount enrollment is up 7.5% compared to 16% on November 22nd. And total FTE is up 10.9% compared to 17.9% a week prior. I investigated the drop, see if we had had a dereg based on billing. There has not been a dereg, but there was a billing notice that went out as a reminder to students. And I suspect some students who had initially registered for winter session courses chose to drop prior to being billed. So that's winter. Spring 2025, spring headcount enrollment, excluding Gemini and non-credit state aidable, is down 6.3% compared to being down 1.9% on November 22nd. FTE is down 8% compared to being down 3.4% the week prior. And an explanation relative to that is Thanksgiving was late this year. And in terms of our advisement and registration activity, we're 2 weeks in comparison to a year ago based on the late Thanksgiving week. So we will catch up between now and mid-January. And there are a significant number of open advisement appointments available for students as well to account for that. I also want to talk about fall Gemini enrollment. So you will recall that our last fall weekly comparison report showed that Gemini headcount enrollment was up 19.4% and FTE was up 41%. So that is because, as I shared with you in November, a decision was made to shift full year courses, the full year course registrations from the spring semester to the fall semester. So that had a significant impact on fall enrollment because of that shift. So the shift in full year course enrollment from spring to fall equates to approximately 160 FTE. And there are approximately 500 students enrolled exclusively in one or more fall full year courses. It's difficult to predict how many of this group will not enroll in a spring course or courses. It's unlikely that all 500 will not enroll in a spring Gemini course. We anticipate students to take spring courses. So I suspect there may be a 5 to 10% decrease in spring Gemini enrollment. However, there is no trend data at this time to reference, given this is the first time registration for full year courses has occurred in the fall. So what we do know is approximately 160 FTE has shifted from spring to fall. And then spring official data is due to SUNY by April 1. And we should have a good picture or good understanding by early March, since Gemini registrations conclude by the end of February. So I'll ask if there's any questions.
So,
But
the,
be pushing.
the, on a yearly basis, there's, everything equals out approximately, right? If this is just a during spring, fall, but
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
there's a letter, then,
Yes.
but it's also influencing registration.
It's going to influence spring, right? So in the past, full year course registrations occurred in the spring. Why? Right? But courses actually start in the fall, and there's a few positives related to the shift to fall registrations for full year, because it allows those students to have access to library and tutoring resources, things they didn't have access to until the spring, right? It also is good for students whose certificate of residence would expire in the spring because they're registering for, in the fall, their C of R is in place. So there's a number of positives associated with it, but we really don't have any trend data yet. This is the first year. So, you know, I believe that enrollment will be consistent with the prior year, understanding too that we continue to see a decline in high school numbers, graduate numbers as well. So we have to factor that in as well. But the bump in the fall was specifically attributed to the shift in full year course registrations.
So just to summarize, I'm basically gonna say what you just said, but a couple of people looked at this. It's essentially swapping. So we will run an unduplicated count in April to look at what the whole impact is, and we expect that will be about the same, notwithstanding that there may be other things going on in Gemini where we could have fewer or more students enroll that have nothing to do with this swap.
Correct.
Right, but the swap is the swap, where we, instead of counting people in the spring, we're now counting them in the fall. And I'm actually I'll give you a couple of statistics about this in the enrollment presentation. And you'll see it visually.
I did have a question with regard to Gemini. Have you seen any school districts either drop out completely or significantly decline the number of students, or anyone that might have gone in?
So concurrent enrollment does not fall under my wheelhouse.
Okay,
What I can tell you is, there is the Department of Agriculture grant initiative that will allow us to have further outreach to rural schools to deliver courses, Gemini courses, as well as our credit courses. We are in the process of implementing that grant and purchasing the equipment and having that implemented and figuring out all the challenges relative to the bell schedule in schools. There's no consistent bell schedule. Some of the other challenges, though, relative to Gemini that Deborah just mentioned, as did I, was students in terms of school district enrollment is declining, right? We know that, at least in certain school districts. Finding qualified teachers within the high school to teach these courses is a challenge as well. And we hear that from the school district administrators. Dr. Nye has a joint superintendent's advisory group that meets routinely throughout the year. And we had a robust discussion at our last meeting about their challenges relative to course delivery.
the instructors that you reference, are they compensated above and beyond?
No, in terms of by us or by the school
By
district?
everyone? Right, no,
No, I don't believe so.
okay. Part of their,
It's part of the,
thank you.
you're welcome. Anything else?
Thank you.
Move on to student success, what's new in the Office of Applied Learning, and I See Linda Cunningham and Felix are online.
Linda,
Linda and Felix are on the phone, so I am going to put up the presentation, I guess, talk through it and let them just kind of add context where they can. They thought the meeting was in Canandaigua, so they were unable to get out to Victor in time. So hello, everyone. Let me get this shared and we will get going. And Linda and Felix, please feel free to add any context at any point.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
So we have a lot of things going on in the applied learning area. There are a lot of grants currently available. It is actually a little bit overwhelming, the amount of money that is being thrown at applied learning experiences and internships. We've had the job linkage grant now for about 5 years. We still have about $98,000 left there. And what we're doing with that is creating program coordinator internships and allowing for students to work on campus with program coordinators to assist them in getting clubs together in various tasks related to their major. And it's been a good experience to kind of bring students and have them work internally. The SUNY internship grant is relatively new. We received that one last year. I'll explain that in a bit. The SUNY mental health internship pilot program is going to start in spring of 25. The Empire State Service Corps, along with its connection to AmeriCorps, started this semester. And then finally, the Strategic Plan Advisory Board Enrichment Project. So the job linkage grant, as I mentioned, program coordinator internships, they're doing career-related trainings. They're putting on workshops for people inside of their discipline. They're doing lunch and learns. They're doing tabling. They're doing all kinds of things related to the major that they are in, working with the coordinator that is a faculty member from that major, and getting paid through this grant to do that work. Linda, did you have anything you wanted to add to this one, or Felix?
Yeah, sure. There's a collaboration between the Human Service Department, or our program, and College Experience. This has been going on for a couple years now, and they're involved in some community projects. For example, this semester, they did a food drive for Gleaners Community Kitchen, and also volunteered, and then they will do a second food drive later this fall or in the spring for our Center of Student Wellbeing. Just want to add to the career-related trainings. This semester, we offered a topic training, ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experience, and the Power of Resilience. It was quite successful. We had 23 students attend, and we're planning to offer a follow-up training. It's kind of a companion training. This was presented by Family Counseling of the Finger Lakes and was well received, and we're hoping to do that again in the spring. New this semester is the internship connection that Ryan mentioned. Felix and I hold monthly tabling events, so students can drop by in the Student Center hallway, ask us any questions they have about internship or grant-related questions. And then we also have a drop-in session once a month. And for the first time, we invited in employers who are seeking interns. Wegmans Organic Farm presented to 10 students, to conservation and horticulture students on the 14th of November. 10 students of the 10 attending, 7 expressed interest, and 4 are currently in the application process for those summer internships. So this is something we're planning on doing on an ongoing way. So if somebody has an immediate need for interns, we'll invite them to the upcoming internship connection and give them the opportunity to recruit right here on campus.
Thank you, Linda.
And I think that's it for that particular.
Okay. What I think is really great about this, you know, I mentioned that there is a significant amount of funding. It really allows us to connect with the community in a deeper way. We're getting an opportunity to work with businesses that we haven't worked with in the past, because we are able to provide funding for the students, which entices them to participate in these opportunities, even if an internship may not be part of their academic program at the moment. And so it has really been fantastic. The SUNY internship grant started last year. Felix, who's on the call, is primarily responsible for this one. Students are registered in a credit-bearing internship course. Once they complete their internship experience, they're given a stipend. They also receive a gas card upon successful completion. The idea being hopefully to defray some of the transportation costs they might run into. They go through the full onboarding process with human resources. And then we have to deliver back to SUNY information related to their credential attainment, job placement, employment in a related field, how they're being retained at that job, as well as, and Felix, if I'm wrong here, please correct me, as well as how often they're using our tutoring center.
Yes, indeed, Ryan. That's another piece of it. We have there's Pell eligible as a preference for this particular program, and tutoring is embedded into offerings that we have for the students. The numbers we've had starting in the spring of 24, we had 25 interns placed, and that received a stipend of $695, and then the gas card, $175, as you can see that. And 3 were just in paid situations, so they just received the gas card. Last summer, we had 16 total interns. 15 were actually in private sector, and they were paid, and 1 was not. So that person received the stipend along with the gas card, and the paid interns received the gas card. And this semester, we have 12 students placed, and we have all of them are on paid situations among criminal justice, human services, and chemical dependency counseling. So they will receive the stipend and the gas card. And as Ryan shared, there's a very intense from SUNY follow-up report every 3 months. We have to follow up 6 months, 12 months, and 3 years after graduation for our students, and very, very, very interested in if they have any continuity relative to having employment in the particular industry that they intern in. And that's one of the big questions about that. And just if they graduated, received diploma, certificate, of course, you need to know about the stipends received and the transportation, and then the regular data about the FERPA form being submitted, paid or unpaid, length of the internship, start dates, etc., and U.S. citizen status as well. So we have tremendous support throughout many offices in the college, gleaning this information as we go on and do that report every 3 months.
Thank you, Felix. The
Ryan?
SUNY mental health intern.
Ryan?
I'm sorry. Yep, go ahead.
It's a question from Trustee Minelli.
Yep.
Ryan, thank you very much. I'm still a little confused about, is there a connection between the SUNY job linkage grant and the SUNY internship grant?
No, they are completely separate pools of money. The job linkage grant we've had for about 5 years, the internship grant we received last year. And the next few that we'll go through kind of highlight the amount of money that SUNY is throwing at these applied learning experiences, trying to get students out doing internships and having these experiences. It really just keeps coming. And frequently we're kind of building the plane as we're flying it, it seems, from the SUNY side. And we can talk about that a little bit with this SUNY mental health internship pilot. Are there any other questions that we can answer?
I do have some follow-ups. Yes, thank you. So I don't really understand what the job linkage grant does. Is it, is it to hire staff? Is it to,
all the money.
what is the job linkage grant purpose?
The job linkage grant's purpose is multifold. One, it can put students out in the field and get them paid for that work. and we are using funding from SUNY to do that. Two, many of them are working in what we call program coordinator internships, where they're working with a program coordinator at our institution inside of whatever their academic major is, and helping that program coordinator set things up like events and, maybe if there's a club or things along those lines. They're doing a lot of work with the coordinator themselves, learning more about their field while they're doing it. And Linda, how many of those do we have this semester?
18, I
Right, yeah,
believe.
right.
Yeah, that's quite an increase. As we started the program, we averaged 10 to 11 internships each semester, and since Felix has taken on this piece of it, we've been able to almost double the amount of program coordinator assistant internships that we offer and take on some new programs. So I think we determined there were 14 different programs.
14 programs represented among the 18 intern assistants.
Okay.
And the job linkage grant really is just still around because originally we were unable to hire someone to take over the job linkage coordinator role. This should have ended a few years ago, and we keep getting no cost extensions, and 95% of that money is going directly to students for their work.
Okay. Thank you. And then the SUNY internship grant, these are not internships that we create. These are internships that are created by in industry.
Yeah, we are.
These are,
Support.
I'm sorry, Ryan.
Nope, you go ahead, Felix.
I'll share just the particular audience for the SUNY internship grant aligns to courses that have students mandated internships. So I think the spirit of the actual grant is that if a student has to have an internship, but most likely because the particular discipline that he or she they are in, then they most likely be unpaid. So they won't be able to work at Wegmans or the mall, have family obligations plus their full schedule of classes, etc., because it's just time is prohibitive. So that's where they had the idea to have them pay, if they're unpaid, to provide the $695 stipend for those students, and then the gas card along, for both paid and unpaid. But the courses that programs that we're aligned to for eligibility: administrative, professional, chemical dependency counseling, computer science, culinary arts, hospitality, human services, paralegal, and viticulture.
Yeah, and so Trustee Mahalik, we are able to place these students with a variety of businesses, both large and small. And so, for example, I think we had 2 or 3 students with Winery Connect last year, which is a relatively small technical company that works with wineries on how to support their software, basically. And we sent them some marketing folks, marketing students, as well as students in our networking and cybersecurity program.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So the SUNY mental health internship pilot, I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. The target group here is AS psychology students. When SUNY brought this out, they wanted students basically in their 4th year, which obviously we told them we could not participate. And then they changed it to 2nd year psychology students, and we only had a few of those. And so we've asked them this week if we could have 1st year psychology students, which they said yes to. So these students would work at one of the 3 facilities listed near the bottom there: Lakeview Health Services, Rochester Regional Health, or the Wayne Behavioral Health Network. The idea here is these students will be paid $16 an hour for a maximum of 240 hours. They'll get the opportunity to work inside of a mental health facility, get that experience that they otherwise wouldn't get. And obviously this is an AS program, so the idea is here they would take that experience and carry it on with them to a 4-year institution, because this is a transfer degree.
Ryan,
And I can,
Ryan, Jeff Askels. 2 questions, really. The first is, given the list of the facilities that are participating, has there been any approach made to the county mental health departments? And have you gotten any kind of a response?
So what happened here is that SUNY reached out to all of the mental health providers they could find across the state. And these are the 3 that responded that they were interested. So I believe they reached out to the county, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay,
Because the Office of Mental Health kind of handled that part of it.
okay. The second question is, can you talk a little bit about what functions these interns do or participating with these facilities?
Yeah, so this one is, again, it's a little bit of building the plane while we're flying it. As I mentioned, we just found out this week that we could also have first-year students. We have not put any student in the field in this yet. It will start in the spring. The idea really is that they will hopefully shadow people who are working in the mental health field, get to learn a little bit about what it's like to work in that field. They will not have specific responsibilities. Those responsibilities will likely be different depending on which facility they end up at. And the idea is really for them to get a pretty wide expanse of knowledge while they're working at those facilities.
Okay, thanks.
And Trustee Marty?
Yes, that's Steve Martin here, Ryan. The $16 per hour, that's a flat rate that all 3 facilities offer, or could they enhance the hourly wage?
Yes,
Those.
that was my first question that I asked, because $16 an hour doesn't really compete. So we'd really need a student who was very, very interested in this kind of work. That number comes directly from SUNY. So SUNY provided that number. Could the facilities pay on top of that? I'm sure they could. I don't know that they would want to, but I'm sure they could if they wanted to.
And then finally, that internship aligns with the semester, so late January to mid-May, is that typically the time frame? Let's say spring.
Yeah, generally that would be the time frame, but if they wanted to do it over the summer, that would also be fine, because this is hourly, so it's really, they can work as many hours as they want up to that 240 max. So when they start and when they end doesn't really matter that much, because it's not based on a credit course.
I mean, it's nearly $4,000. I mean, the hours times that wage, but that's not significant, but one is competing with the dollars at 20 an hour, so.
Right, exactly.
That's impressive. I mean, that's a great resume builder, as you say, as they get and build their CV to the next stage of their educational pursuit. Wow. Thank you.
Well, yeah, as they're looking to transfer, I think this is a great thing to be able to put on as you apply to a 4-year college if you're applying to a pretty high level psychology program.
And just to give up,
One quick follow-on question. What provisions are there for the well-being that this is for the student, that this is meaningful and that they're in a safe environment?
Yeah, we sign contracts with every place we place interns, basically, that identify their rights or their responsibilities, our responsibilities, and student safety is obviously paramount. This one specifically is one that we are going to have to ensure that is built in, but the Office of Mental Health has been helping us with documentation and things like that. And Linda, did you want to jump in and say something?
Yeah, what we're planning to do is use some of the documents that we use for our credit bearing internships. So there'll be a learning agreement, there'll be a midpoint check-in, and then a final check-in. Of course, there'll be no grade because it's not linked to a course, but that will give us a sense of how students are performing, if there's any issues, and they can always connect with me if they have any concerns while they're out in the field. And I just wanted to give an update on where we're at. We currently have one student, a second-year student, in the application process with Clifton Springs Hospital, and there were 3 first-year students who were quite eager to participate, and so we're very pleased that SUNY has granted us the opportunity to have them included in this project. So I will be reaching out to those 3 students and seeing which OMH facility they were interested in starting the application process for them as well.
I guess I did have one follow-up to that point. Is there a cap, a maximum number of students that could be placed?
There's not a cap, but what we're having to do is sort of follow what the OMH agencies are allowing. Each one has given us no more than 2 spots for interns. So right now that'd be a maximum of 6, unless we could increase the number of facilities that were involved. We did send SUNY a list of local facilities, and some of them were excluded because they weren't OMH facilities. They want to deal exclusively with Office of Mental Health providers. So we could, you know, again, approach that and see if we could increase that pool of sites. But for the time being, these are the 3 that OMH has identified for us.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and just one last interesting note on here is that, you know, originally the target here was 4-year colleges, and all of the colleges that are participating are 2-year colleges. And I think there are 4 colleges, Linda, or 3?
I think there are 4. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sorry to blow things up. Go ahead, Ryan.
So the Empire State Service Corps, I'm sure you've all heard of AmeriCorps. This is kind of a new thing. Empire State Service Corps, we have 5 slots to put students in these service areas, sustainability or kind of working with basic needs and SNAP. All the slots have been filled, which is great. And then we also have a bunch of the students who have moved on and also are working with AmeriCorps. And Linda, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. We were originally allotted 5 slots. We had additional applicants. We filled those 5 slots. We had 2 additional applicants. So SUNY has allowed us to add 2 new slots on for a total of 7. So we have 4 students here on campus with the Center for Student Wellbeing, who are in the SNAP and Basic Need Corps, and we have 1 student at Cornell Cooperative Extension, Wayne County, in the Sustainability Corps. The 2 new students who recently applied were interested in K through 12 Corps. So we're planning to reach out to the FLCC Child Care Center to see if we can place at least 1 student there, and then we'll look beyond to local school districts to see if we can find an option for the 2nd student.
Yeah, and the reason that the slide doesn't really align with what Linda's saying is because, again, this is another one they're kind of building as we're flying. We just asked for those extra slots and found out what the students wanted to do. So that's why you don't see the K-12 core on here and it says 5 instead of 7.
Yeah, that's very recent. That's within the last week or so. So as Ryan mentioned, 2 students have completed the AmeriCorps application process, and that will allow them, excuse me, I don't have the exact amount, but I think it's over $1,000 towards tuition for when they complete their 300 hours, if they decide to transfer on to a 4-year institution. And I believe they can also use that for a family member. My experience with AmeriCorps has been that if they don't use that, they can use those credits for a family member. So that's a nice added bonus it's for the same 300 hours that their Empire State Service Corps service allows, and then they can kind of parallel at the same time and complete the AmeriCorps commitment at the same time.
All right, Linda,
Do
you want to talk about your strategic plan grant?
Oh, sure. This is the first semester we were awarded a strategic plan grant for the advisory board enrichment project. And this semester we offered an introductory meeting, and then 6 drop-in sessions for program coordinators who either already had a board and wanted to obtain, additional information on enhancing their board, or for those programs who had not yet formed an advisory board and wanted some assistance with that whole startup process. So we are actively, over the course of the fall semester, working with 7 program coordinators to begin the process of creating their board. And these are folks that either attended a drop-in session or scheduled an individual session with me to start that process. So each drop-in session, I've created little mini presentations. So each is based around a particular topic related to getting a board up and running. And then those are available if a coordinator wants that access to that, they can have that. I can just email that out to them. So we had planned to do a lunch and learn tomorrow. There were some scheduling conflicts with that. So we're planning to move that to early in the spring semester when folks return after the winter break. So any questions on the enrichment project?
I have one. Trustee Mihalik.
Linda, this is Donna Mihalik. I was just wondering if you have a capacity requirement, like is there a limit to the number of people that you think can participate in this program per year?
Not necessarily. It's, as I said, it's open to those, most of the AAS programs already have an established board. So they can participate, and then any programs who haven't started the process are welcome to participate as well. So it's pretty much open to any program coordinator.
And our strategic plan goal is that every program will have an advisory board by the end of our strategic plan. And so this is working towards that goal.
Thank you.
And our plan for that, for the lunch and learn, we had a panel of 5 program coordinators who either have had a long-standing advisory board or ones who have just recently formed theirs. They were going to share about their process, some of the tips they learned along the way, and then some of those long-term boards. A lot of them incorporate alumni, or some of them have membership that represents K through 12 as well as transfer institutions. So I was asking them all to come and share their expertise and how they form their board, how they maintain it, and some of the tricks of the trade, so to speak, about how they have successful advisory boards.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Well, we thank you. We really appreciate your patience and we're asking all these questions, but as you can see, the board's very interested and enthusiastic about this very, very important program. So thank you very much for all you're doing with it.
Yeah,
We're
thank
very,
you for
We
the opportunity.
appreciate
Thank you.
your support. Thank you.
Move on to some resolutions. Kim, that's the same.
I'm over
Here you are. Fine, behind Donna.
dragging my personal on with me. First, I want to thank all the trustees for meeting the needs of the college with staffing and getting things moving for our Title III positions. It was really helpful. Give us a little extra time to be able to get started in recruiting for those important positions. So what you have before you this evening are 2 positions. In the first 2, I'd like to talk about are the professional tutor and the financial aid specialist. As you may recall from the last board meeting, I mentioned that the college was going to be coming to you with our part-time professional positions as well as our full-time. These are the first two of that group. The tutor position, we made extensive changes to the job description because we want to be sure when we post the position, we're putting discipline-specific information when we seek a tutor. So we made significant changes to make it better, more easily managed to be posted and recognizable to people looking for tutoring type positions. The second position is the financial aid specialist. That position was previously called the FAFSA completion specialist. And the financial aid department thought it would be best to have a position that was a little more generic, concerned many aspects of financial aid, not just the FAFSA form, although we all know there's a whole lot to be served with that form. So just to explain, like, these are the first titles you're seeing, and how they stand out amongst the third position, which is the position that HR worked with the college's assessment planning and continuous improvement department, APCA. This position was developed, the director of data engineering and analytics support to provide the college with the necessary leadership and technical skills, resulting in data analytics support that will allow the college to continue to make data-driven decisions and also transform the curation of data to ensure sustainability. A review of the position has been made, and it's been determined to be part of the Professional Association Pay Group A. Those are the ones you have before you this evening. Are there any questions?
Questions? Seeing none.
All right. Thank you very much.
Please.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
I am here to present two resolutions for your consideration. The first is for the 2025-2026 faculty reappointment recommendations. And I am pleased to support the recommendation of tenure teams as well as our AVP of instruction. This recommendation is in recognition of these individuals successfully meeting or exceeding the areas of teaching effectiveness, service to the department, assessment effectiveness, and professional growth. And with that, we have some of our colleagues with us this evening, Dr. Yolong Cho, Science and Technology, Melissa Kellogg in Nursing, Melissa Langworthy in Nursing, Ali Kala, Environmental Conservation and Horticulture, Dr. David Canos, Social Science, Dr. Sarah Heidelbrink Bruno, Humanities, Lynn McNamara, Nursing, Dr. Adriana Lucedola, Visual and Performing Arts, and Tomas Gonzalez in Business. So with that, I'd like to request your support with this recommendation.
Questions on the board?
Thank you. The second is one of my greatest responsibilities, and that is the recommendation of the awarding of tenure for two of our faculty colleagues. As you know, tenure recognizes not only the contributions that our faculty have made thus far, but also is our investment and their commitment to the future of our college and the greater academic community. This evening, I would like to present to you Tiffany Layden, instructor of nursing. She has contributed significantly in her field of study as well as the nursing department. One thing that was mentioned or highlighted, I should say, for Tiffany is her commitment to professional development and growth, which lifelong learning is definitely One of the primary characteristics of a faculty member. And secondly, we have to present Beth McCabe, instructor in humanities. And I think what struck me most about her tenure team's recommendation was Beth's deep care, authentic care for her students and holistic student support, as well as her commitment to teaching and learning practices. So with that, this resolution also requests that they be promoted to assistant professor. And so with the higher academic rank also comes additional responsibilities. And in those areas, greater emphasis in curriculum, instruction, student advising, institutional service, as well as serving as ambassadors of FLCC, and with a special focus on holistic student success. So with that, I'd like to state that I am grateful for their contributions thus far. And with your approval, I will look forward to their futures at the college, their future leadership, and inclusive teaching and learning excellence. Thank you.
Questions from the board? Impressive, impressive.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Move on to a strategic thought presentation, Dr. Ortiz. All right, I'm sorry, Dr. Ortloff.
Other Dr. O.
Very exciting that you're getting data. Person, that's that.
Yes, we are very, that is, the evolution of the data warehouse that we've been speaking about.
Still can be asked on that.
I'm too short to stand there, so.
Wow.
I mean, okay, we'll make do. Is there other storage? I don't think a police, there you go. Thank you, right? No, that's not you think. So this is my. Okay, so hi, everyone. We're here for our annual foray into talking about fall to fall enrollment and sort of a beginning look at retention, which those of you who've been playing along for a while now will recall that we only get some initial numbers on retention at this point in the year, but I will be going over some of them. And Jason was kind enough to deliver and hand out the hard copies of the enrollment report, which will provide the PDF of that as well. But in the past, most of you have requested a hard copy, so we brought that ahead of time, so you don't have to request it this year. So with that, let's talk a little bit about enrollment. Okay. Let's see. So the first thing, we want to talk a little bit about who our students are and who's coming here. But there's some context that we need to talk about this year in particular. And Dr. Davis talked quite a bit about the Gemini piece of that, which is a big piece of the context that impacts all of these numbers. But it's not just that. We have some timing and enrollment shifts, as noted on the slide, with the Gemini being counted in the fall instead of the spring. That has a particular impact. We also have the ongoing discontinuation of SUNY Online. But you'll recall, that doesn't mean we closed our programs, right? We still have our engineering program. SUNY Online just is no longer promoting a SUNY Online engineering program. From a numbers perspective, though, that's a little complicated because we're still teaching out the students who are in the SUNY online program. So we continue to have some students who are SUNY online, some students who are, and so there's some timing issues, which with numbers does make a big difference. And they're important, which is why I named this slide grains of salt. Because I think the overall message is that this year in particular, we have a lot of context. That means we want to be cautious about jumping to any conclusions about any numbers we see. The Gemini is a perfect example of that. We need to follow the trend for a full year so we really see how it all fully plays out. The SUNY Online is one that we need to continue to track, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But there are a couple of others which you may not be as familiar with. There was a change in law at the New York State level about how to track what is referred to as ancestry questions. So previously, or sometimes referred to as ethnicity questions. And that particularly impacts students of Hispanic or Latinx heritage and what questions we ask of them. So what that means is we're now asking slightly different questions than we used to because there's a law change, and that has only impacted students who started this fall. So that means we have students who are already here who were asked one set of questions about their ancestry. And then we have students who started this fall and we asked them a slightly different question about ancestry. Now, over time, all of that will play itself out, but we're at this like juncture, right, this moment in time. So one of the things I'm going to point out to you is we have an increase in Latinx students. We definitely have an increase. It's also that we're counting it a little bit differently. Yeah, we are. So exactly what that's going to mean, I can't tell you. We need to play that out, right? FAFSA. We heard lots and lots and lots and lots and lots about our friend FAFSA last year, right? And there's no question that FAFSA and the sort of rollout issues had a very big impact on the higher education landscape this year. We didn't particularly appreciate any, or we don't believe there was any real impact on our enrollment. And that's in part because our financial aid office just did a bang up job managing that situation, which was challenging. However, the FAFSA form changed, regardless of its rollout or not. That means different questions were asked. That produces different data. And in particular, questions about first generation status were changed on the FAFSA form. So again, does that mean we're counting it wrong? No. We do have we have more first generation students than we've had in the past. It could be impacted by the FAFSA. It might not be impacted by the FAFSA, but it is a context piece that we're dealing with this year. So you put all of these things together. FAFSA also asks about Pell eligibility. So that's another area. And what that means is it's definitely my job to say, we have some things going on and there's some things we're going to keep an eye on that are maybe potentially interesting. But this isn't a year to make major decisions or think, oh my goodness, we have a bazillion more first generation students. We have to blah, 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 blah. This is a year to make sure that have our systems in place, we're paying attention and we continue to pay attention. And play out some of these cycles and have a better understanding of what is impact or what might be a change in the way we're asking. Okay, so with that said, I think we already covered, for the most part, our conversation about Gemini. Yeah.
One quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
What was the rationale for deciding to do that?
The Gemini? Yeah, so it's actually right there, but I'm going to say it. So the big thing is, as Dr. Abeda said, we're not 100% sure why it was initially counted in the spring here.
I can give some insight there.
Oh, about why it was in the past.
Counted in the spring because the grade was awarded at the end of the course, which was in the spring.
So there you
So
go.
it was so that they were registered into the semester that the final grade was awarded. that was the rationale.
That being said, that decision was made many years ago, prior to most of us being at the college. And it does not align with practice in the field. So the other SUNY colleges do not do this. So that also in general throws our data off, and that's never really a great thing when you're in a system. Two, so that was one of the main reasons. The other is that it does simplify Gemini registration. It lowers some barriers and provides opportunities, as Dr. Avedis was saying and Dr. Ortiz was saying. The students previously didn't have access to our library for the whole fall semester, even though they'd already started class because they weren't technically our student yet. That's just not a good practice, right, from a teaching and learning perspective. So that lowers that barrier. It simplifies it. It's more straightforward. So all of those things. However, there is a other motivating factor, which is important for you as the board to know, is it allows us to capture, not just capture, but it allows us to receive state aid or FTE dollars at a higher rate. So we are literally going to be able to get more state aid by doing this. So ultimately, you know, yes, we're doing it for all the other reasons, but it's also financially makes sense. For the same work, we get more reimbursement.
Excellent. That's why Jason enthusiastically handed this out.
Yeah, I think he was excited about it. I was like, no. So that's the reasoning behind that. As we said before, the basic nuts and bolts of all of this are by counting it this fall, it has artificially inflated our year over year. So it artificially inflates when we're comparing ourselves to last fall, it looks like we've increased more. And I'm going to show you a graphic about this in just a second. But it's really a flip-flop. So we'll appreciate that this fall. In the spring, we'll probably see a fairly similar decrease. And when we run an unduplicated count, it'll be about the same. And that's what we're expecting. Okay, so speaking of graphics, so again, those of you who've been playing along for a while probably remember this graphic. I produce it every year. We do, or SUNY provides us with a, you know, where are we in ranking in terms of our year-to-year comparison, our comparison of increase to decrease when we look at our enrollment last year, and how does that compare to the rest of the SUNY system. So right now, because of that Gemini piece, that puts us in a ranking of number 2 across the SUNY system with a 10% increase. The corrected or adjusted FLCC level is 5.5%, which puts us in between Onondaga about they're at 5.2%. So visually, you can see we're still in the top, you know, quarter of schools, and there's, you know, a fair number right in that 6 to 5 range. So good, very good, I would say even. And then the other thing I would remind you is this is a year-to-year comparison. So if you're a school that, say, like Niagara, had a horrible enrollment last year, they're way up at the top because their comparison from one year to the next, that's what's being measured. This isn't a measure of relative strength. It's only a year-to-year comparison. So it's helpful. We look at it each year. It's also made public every year. So I want to make sure you've seen it because it's out there, right? But it's, you know, only so useful in what it does. And as you know, our enrollment has been strong and steady for several years, not what's being measured on this particular graphic. Any questions on that? All right, so moving on, we just broadly our student status, so whether or not we have new students, transfer students, continuing students, returning students, or duly enrolled students, is pretty similar. We don't see a lot of change from last year to this year. Still have a large amount of duly enrolled students, and the other categories are fairly unchanged. Okay, so what does that mean for overall demographics? So 59% full-time, 41% part-time, and I'm going to want to talk a little bit more about that part-time number here in a minute. That first gen number, 35%, that is up over last year, and that potentially has some impact from the FAFSA, we don't know. 54% economically disadvantaged, and this is essentially the same as last year. And then our breakdown with race and ethnicity, white students at 70%. Our students of color are now at 26%, so fully a quarter of our student population. That number has gone up every year for 10 years. Disability status, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, for retention, is at 12%. And that number is a little bit different than the other demographics variables in here, because the disability status tends to be a lagging variable, meaning a lot of times students come here in their fall semester, meaning the students that just started here, and don't come with a registered disability. And it takes them a semester or a year to register that. So when we see an increase in enrollment, we don't necessarily see an increase in disability percentage-wise right away because of that lagging variable. It's a little bit tricky. And the other piece to that is tricky is we do have an increase in our adult student populations, one that we've seen going up for a number of years. Adult students are much less likely to have documentation for disability because they're not coming out of high school. So it takes longer to get them registered and longer for them to identify. So that's just something to keep in mind, because while that percentage is about the same, the actual population is continues to go up, and we see the requests for it going up steadily, which means we may appreciate next year a percentage increase. When we see those requests coming in, they may not have all been fulfilled yet because of the time it takes. So just some things to keep in mind.
Just a quick question. You referenced that maybe one of the reasons would be their lack of identification.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that's apparent?
For adult students, that tends to be the biggest problem or biggest hurdle. The students who are coming right out of K-12, for the most part, they're students who have IEPs or 504 plans. So they were identified as receiving services in the K-12 system. They're also usually quite aware of that. They know that. They come with that documentation. The students who are returning, not only has the culture around IEP and 504 plans changed dramatically.
For the better?
Yes, at the K-12 level, there was a lot of hesitancy for many, many years on the part of parents to have their children labeled.
Right.
So, my generation, much, younger than me, that until about 10 years ago, then there was a fairly significant shift in culture, and it became much more common to have identification. So you see a rise at the K-12 level, and there's also much more awareness.
Okay, thanks.
55% female, 42% male, what are the other three?
Not identifying either male or female.
Okay.
Yeah, which has only been tracked for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, so a couple of other things to look at. I mentioned a few of these already. So our part-time students 25 and older has gone up 33.5%. That's a really big number. And that's a trend that we've seen. Adult student population at our average age has been going up for several years, but that particular part-time jump is pretty large in 1 year. And it also does have, you'll see some impact on that in terms of retention that I'll talk about when we get to the retention area.
And that's year over year, excuse me.
This is year over year, but it is a trend. The shift in our adult student population is now at a 5-year point, meaning it's a trend. We've seen a 5-year increase in the adult student population. And I think that's significant because that is a population identified in our strategic enrollment plan and in our strategic plan, our previous strategic plan, as well as in a slightly different form, the current strategic plan. So what is good about that is we're seeing impact from strategy. The part-time piece, though, also brings with it other challenges, right? The students who are part-time take longer to go through, need different services, right, et cetera, et cetera. So just some things to think about there. Hispanic or Latinx population has increased again steadily, but it's now 10% of the student body. So it was sort of, creeping up each year, and now we're at 10% of the student body. Again, an area that we identified in the previous strategic plan, in the strategic enrollment plan, and in the current strategic plan as a community we wanted to serve. These are good things. It's the impact of strategy, or, at least we like to think so. But that's one of those ones where those ancestry questions may be having an impact on measurements. We want to keep an eye on that. And the other ones are fairly straightforward. Online coursework was up again over last year, but it has been going up each year. 66% take at least one online course, and 54% are 100% asynchronous, meaning they're taking online asynchronous courses.
These trends, what they're telling me, has got to be putting a lot of pressure on college, because there's a lot of, these folks need different support.
I mean,
than maybe exist. So I think it's just important that we understand that this really does create challenges for the college to keep up with that population coming through.
And one thing that's important is that's why we appreciate, for instance, board approving the funding for the PACE program. We have the ASAP program, and we'll probably be coming to for more in the future for various student services that are going to need some help in the future. So that PACE and the ASAP put about 1.2 million to those efforts to help some of the portion of those students there.
And our early indications are that it's helping, and we'll have more to say to you next spring on that.
And I think it's important that there's a lot of the public that doesn't understand that this is
Yes.
their grandfather's or their father's community college.
Mhm.
These are changing, and this is part of my world lately with SUNY.
Yeah.
And with the legal legislators seem to be getting it. But this really, I'd love to see this on a basis, because I think it tells a particular story about, why we can't keep
Doing the same thing.
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, and
I
I might
appreciate you saying that.
add to that, so is the fact that it's the reason we exist. Other institutions either say no or choose not to, or don't provide the services. Community colleges in particular, this one has shown that we are in fact welcoming and support, and have had success and are using the trend. It's not just a one-off. So again, the lining to that, for me, that's the messaging. That door is wide open, and come on in. We're here to help, and we're here to help you advance. So I know we all know that, but I think there is a story there, just as you said.
And as far as
Yeah, it's also a nuanced story, right? It's a challenge that those students don't all need the same thing.
this is how the data informs decision making.
Yes. Okay, couple of other things to point out here. Overall increase we've talked about. I do want to talk about that part-time student enrollment increase of 14.3% in part-time student enrollment. And we're going to see an interesting trend on the retention side there. That's sort of one of the big messages out of these data is we've seen some shift to part-time over the last few years, but we're definitely seeing more and more students choosing to keep their credit load a little bit lower or shift back and forth. So that's beginning in a post-COVID era, because we sort of have to count everything from 22 on to look like it's a bit more here to stay. Okay. A couple of things that I think is interesting. These are just a couple of interesting points. Since we're here at a campus center, the number of female students at Victor doubled since 2023. Now the actual N there is fairly small, right? So, but these are all tech programs, and historically have not enrolled a lot of women in them. So it's still cause to celebrate and take pause that we're doing something there, and hopefully we're able to continue to see that gain. There have been years we have had 0 women enrolled at Victor programs, or 1, 2. So I decided we should point that out.
So I just have a question. Are there any districts, I'm aware of Victor, that offer Project Lead the Way or engineering or STEM?
Campus Neighborhood does.
So there's a few in the area that would be a feeder, but not 25 or 30, it's few, okay.
But I will mention that the Career Expo features an alumni panel, and the alumni panel always includes women who have graduated from our technology programs here at the campus.
Which is great.
And they represent their gender very well and have been very successful in the field.
Yeah. We definitely have some great women graduates, but it is nice to see that number on a good upward swing. Okay, so we always talk each year a little bit about largest enrollments, and for the most part, those players are fairly similar. Our large programs remain our large programs, but this year I decided I wanted to also highlight just a little bit different take on it, or not take, but just a little bit different conversation. So when you look at this slide, we have some that I like to say are ones to watch. This is something that's going to keep going on, right? So architectural tech, it's a small program, Victor-based program, up 41%. Again, that is a small program. The end on that is not huge, but that's interesting to me. Let's see what happens next year, right? But it's not necessarily like, let's go make a lot of decisions about architect. It's a 1-year performance. However, let's take a look at American Sign Language. Their 1 year is 47%, but over the last 5 years, it's 108% increase in enrollment. So that tells me, hey, let's keep looking at this, right? What's going on there? So I think it's interesting to put these next to each other and look at the ones where we have a 1-year gain and a 1 year and 5 year gain, or only a 5 year gain. The story of horticulture cannabis versus horticulture is also very interesting, right? Cannabis, huge program gains over 5 years, remembering this is a new program, right? So some of that is because it's a new program, lots of big industry. And this year, there's been some decline in cannabis, not a huge amount, it's pretty steady, but a very big gain in horticulture. When you call Sean and you say, Sean, help me understand these numbers, he'll say it's the industry regulating itself. It's the industry realizing that for some of these students, what they really need is just horticulture. And they're coming into the horticulture because it's beginning to sort of figure itself out. Still early days. It doesn't mean the cannabis program isn't needed, But it does mean that in a new area, things are beginning to shift a little. So does he know that for sure? He does not. He's a subject matter expert, and when I see things like that, I call subject matter experts and say, hey, let's talk about this. But that's an interesting thing to be thinking about, right? And to continue to watch.
So if you combine those two.
Yeah, and there is curricular overlap.
Okay.
There's heavy curricular overlap. And when you think about, say, the greenhouse, facilities, they both use all of the same things. So, that's good. Okay, so just a couple of interesting points there. I will also tell you, I tried to color code this a little bit, but it didn't work on the slide. Many of these games, like American Sign Language, engineering, nutrition and dietetics, you see having been sustained because of decisions to create highly accessible instruction. So either moving 100% online or online accessible. It doesn't mean that they're all asynchronous, right? Some of them are, nutrition and dietetics, for example, is sort of a combination of things, right? But that is for sure a trend that we've seen. Graphic design is another one, 82% over 5 years. Was pretty flat this year, but that came after making decisions to have very accessible ways to reach their students. So that is also a story that you have to know that to know it, but is fairly clear. And that, you may recall, is the second year I'm delivering you that message, right? What are the ones I'm watching? They're the ones that have the most accessible curriculum. Okay. Retention. So every year I come and talk to you about the two ways that we measure retention. And it's really important for us to know this because that first way is the way it's reported in most official publications. And that is primarily to only look at first-time, full-time students. To your point, that's not really our mission. We don't just serve first-time, full-time students, right? That's a very traditional student. Our mission is to serve anyone who walks in our door. So we made a decision about 6 or 7 years ago to be able to measure our retention on all students. However, we cannot report that retention because we are required to report retention to the federal government and to the state in very, very prescribed and specific ways. So I always want to make sure you know what is being reported and out there. So we're going to talk about that first time, full time, and first time numbers in general. And then we're going to look at all students, which I feel is a lot of numbers at one time, but I do want you to be familiar with what's being put out there in official publications, even though we use our all student retention for decision-making because it's a much more inclusive way of looking at retention.
You maintain that track, that FLCC track. Great. Wonderful.
Are other community colleges that are doing that as well?
I mean, I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard not to, but I can't pull their numbers, right? Because if I go to SUNY BI, which is how we pull each other's numbers, it's the same problem. So yeah, we talk about it and et cetera, but it is sort of a compounding issue that you can't benchmark against anything official that's outside of the way I was describing it. Okay.
That was
So-
10 years ago, that was a big issue with
The
keeping the
voluntary
dream. I mean,
Yeah, the voluntary framework, right.
the arsenal.
We were members of the VFA. The VFA sort of died, or hasn't been particularly successful, but we did follow that and we were members beautifully. Okay, so this is another one of those slides I show you every year about our ranking. So our overall, again, fall to fall, first time, full time, official retention number fell slightly from 54.7% to 53.4%. So it's essentially flat, but a very slight decline. However, of course, the problem with this is it's first time, full time. So it's very susceptible to any decrease in full-time enrollment. Keep that in mind. Remember what I said about part-time students? Okay, we'll come back.
And it's very tight, that's a very tight.
It's extremely tight. Yeah.
1/10 of 1%.
Yeah. So right now, we're still in what we call cohort retention or official retention. We do, in our official retention, we use the same methodology as for the first time, full time, and break down into part-time, just so we can see within the official lens what is part-time and what is full-time. And SUNY asks us to do this because they, unlike the federal government, also want to know about it. So, but still only looking at that cohort of first-time students, the first time they set foot on this campus, they get counted. So here we see a slight decline in full-time retention, but a really notable improvement in part-time retention. I go back to this slide, if it's gonna let me. That really notable improvement in part-time isn't calculated at all in this statistic, because the federal government, the official, doesn't look at part-time. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. We have had fairly significant gains in retention, but they're in our part-time population. Pretty much everything else stayed flat-ish. It's not going to show up in anything official.
So is that, they use FTE then?
No,
Only full-time?
they use, oh, yes. It's the
FTE.
number of credit hours that a
Right,
student is
okay,
taking
right.
that we use to calculate if they're part-time. Okay, so now I'm going to leave this official world and we're going to go into that all students, right? So this is all our students, not Gemini, but all of our matriculated students. And here what we see is essentially our overall retention is flat from last year, 1 percentage point difference. And it's slightly above, but about at our 5-year average. So those are good things in our overall trend. We want it to go up, but it's still going. Couple things we want to talk about here. So we've talked for several years about the discrepancy between our white students and our students of color. And we're still maintaining, you'll notice that the ratio is fairly similar. So we're not really making we're not seeing a huge loss, but we're not seeing a huge gain. Now, however, I want you to remember that the enrollment of these students has gone up. Right? So the number of these students has gone up. One thing I want to talk about briefly is there is a bit of a discrepancy, though, between different students. So the area that I think we're struggling with the most, and where we did see a slight decline, 2 percentage point decline this year, is in our African American students. So if all students of color are at 47%, our African American students are only at 40%. That's a 20 percentage point difference between our white students. Our Hispanic students, however, are at 54%, which is up 2 percentage points from last year, and they've been steadily increasing. So there's a little bit of a mixed message there, and Dr. Covington, I think, is going to talk briefly.
Yeah, just very
Yeah.
quickly. In
Yeah.
regards to the African American students, well, perfectly, one of our minority students, as many of you are in charge of you are in project. For that you are in project, we've been doing a variety of things that I want to bring to your attention. The first thing I will share with you that we've been doing what's considered low-level intervention. So low-level interventions would be our chatbot feature as well as targeted emails. Please talk about that. In addition to that, this semester, we've also been doing more high-level interventions. So in addition to chatbot and those emails, we've also been hosting programming for these students. I've also met some faculty in regards to some type of instructional interventions that we can look at, including universal design of learning and backwards design, which was the epitome of what George spoke to relevant to what we're doing as a campus community. For those of you who are not familiar with backwards design, long story short, it's thinking about what is the learning goal you have for the student, and specifically working backwards from there. So you have to operate with a higher level of attention. In regards to the cohort of students that I'm specifically working with, these are students at FLCC that are not receiving any type of intervention at all. So this is not our EOP students because they already receive intervention. Now, our ASAP students and not our PACE students. ASAP is Advancing Success in Associate Pathways. So those students already receive personalized coaching and financial assistance. Our PACE students, persistence and completion to excellence, they already receive personalized counseling. For all of our URM students who do not receive those programs, those are the students that I'm working with, our AVP for Student Affairs with. So I just want to share that in regards to some of the intervention that we're looking at. In the spring, I'll have a full presentation. I will get that today. So she's already been tracking some of the numbers for me. And then in the spring, I will be doing a presentation in regards to where we're at. So then I'll get back to you.
Thanks. So one other area to look at in retention, we see that our students with disability continue to be retained at a higher rate than our students with non-disability. This is a success story for sure, but it's also indicative of exactly what Trustee Cushman was saying, because students who do successfully identify themselves with a disability and enroll with disability services, wraparound services are inherent in that intervention. So this is a long-standing, already developed structure for these students. Now, the question is it sufficient? When we see the number of students with disabilities going up, that's something we're going to need to continue to look at. Is it sufficient for adult students, which can be more complex? All of those things are real and to, be delved in at some other point, but that overall is a success story that we need to do. And then the next and last point I want to make about retention is retention by age. So our adult learners continue to go up as a proportion of our student population. And for the most part, our retention of them is only a little bit below or at the same level as our traditional age students. Now, there are a number of reasons for that, and there's a lot of literature about us adult students and motivation to learn and the decision to come back having a real positive impact. But overall, adult students do tend to face certain challenges that can make learning more of a hurdle for them. So seeing a retention rate at least steady while we're seeing increased enrollment is a positive and one we can really build on. And would hope to build on as our enrollment strategies continue to work with that population. That's all from me, although I am happy to answer questions.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Love it.
So
Somebody else have a question? I was just scanning the
yeah,
book, and there's a lot of data in here about the number of students by county
yeah.
and number of Gemini students by county.
Mhm.
If we were to request it, is it possible to break that down to lower levels than just county, say
Yeah, we've done that.
zip code or something?
Yes, we can do it by zip code. I'm fairly sure we've done that before. And we certainly can do it by school district. And we do that, just not necessarily in this room. Yeah,
That's okay.
We've done it by the county districts as well.
So
yeah, the supervisor districts, right?
not so much relevant to this conversation.
Yeah.
But ones we had earlier in committee meetings, I just even took a quick and rounded up number, but for Ontario County, we've got about 2,000 students a year
Yes.
going to FLCC.
Yeah, Ontario County is by far our largest county,
40%.
our sender,
Yeah.
largest sender.
But I'm pretty sure the outside world
Doesn't realize that.
has no clue that it's that many students.
Yeah, we can certainly produce specialized handouts and have in the past for some of the, various conversations.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my question, which probably can really be answered in, 25 words or less, but having gone through all of this,
Mhm.
looking at so many variables that your head spins, my takeaway is that we are on track with our strategic plan. with what we.
Yes, I mean, this
what
only
we're
looks
aiming
at
to do.
enrollment and retention, but yes.
And I know we're not trying to look at this particular year and make any particular recommendations, but are you thinking about where this may need to go?
Yes. Is that good for 25?
Pretty good.
I mean, I think the cabinet, and certainly the president, we have pretty regular conversations about that. In my role with strategy, it's maybe, it's most of what I would like to be thinking about. There are certainly days that I don't think about it. But, I do think we have some trends that tell us that there are things we can do or should do. And I also think there's some things that are telling us that we're doing the right things, right? So, multiple years of adult student enrollment, you know, we're on a good track there, but that doesn't mean you stop. You know, you continue thinking about that, you continue innovating around that, but we've had success for more than 1 year in a sustained way, right? So those are things that we can draw some conclusions about. We are doing well recruiting students of color, for sure. 10 years, we have increased enrollment and a quarter of our population is now students of color. You know, not all of them who live here, some of them are online, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I think that's fairly significant in a predominantly white area. And that is something that we are doing something very right about that. I think we need to work on the retention, right? I think our numbers tell us that we're having success, but we're not where we want to be. That is a national issue. It's not just an FLCC issue, but it's one that we want to continue to look at. So those things are pretty clear in the numbers, but there are other things that we, you know, that, like I mentioned, that we need to keep an eye on.
Just to add one, you highlighted the number of students that are fully online.
Yeah, oh, well, for sure.
We
Yeah.
really have to be cognizant to meet students where they need, but then also know how to serve those students in those different modalities and creating the greatest flexibility we can within the modalities to meet all our students' needs in different and better ways. But I will commend the efforts that have been done so far. So
Yeah, for sure.
to go back, you know, a metric, use one example to one data point, but it was our student corporation vice president last year who was fully online. I felt like that student had the greatest experience just as they would have if they'd been here. So we just need to make sure that we're still striving to meet our students where they decide they want to come support us, work with us and support that way. I think we're doing pretty good in that area, but we have to really keep moving and looking into the future about what else can we do.
From an enrollment perspective, you know, I think that the trend is pretty solidified. Maybe one COVID disrupts everything, and that just has disrupted a lot of our trends. So we do have to keep that in mind. That's not that long ago. But it's pretty clear that the enrollment piece is the programs that are really seeing enrollment gains are highly accessible programs.
Different modalities.
Different modalities, right? And then the complement to that is, you know, what of all the services we just talked about, those students are still complex students. There's still all the other things I named. They're just choosing to use those modalities. So that's a both and that we have to tackle that challenge. Do you agree?
Have we fully seen the impact or the effect of the discontinuation of SUNY's online? Is that still
good
on the
question.
trail?
Yeah, so we're still dealing with it numerically, for sure. We're still dealing with that numerically because we haven't taught out all of the students who started in SUNY online. What I think is maybe a little bit of an unsung story here is our programs have done pretty much held their own despite the loss of SUNY online. We have not seen major cliff, you know, burnout in any particular programs. We need to keep watching that. It's still fairly early in that process, and as I said, we're still teaching out. But I think that is indicative of the strength of those programs and of the desire of the students going back to that modality. And in particular cases, we really do fulfill niches that are not otherwise available. We have strong online STEM programs, and those programs are not readily available. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of variables that play there, but I think overall, no, I wouldn't say it's done. I'm not comfortable saying 100%, yeah, we weathered that storm done. But I think we're seeing the writing on the wall that we will maintain strong programming in those areas.
Thank you.
So as you get to the next step.
Yep.
Student success.
Yep.
Not necessarily completion.
Right, because the success can mean different things, transfer.
Transfer, it could be that an adult student came and got the course they needed.
Yeah.
You're thinking about different ways, or is there any trend going on around the industry about how to relook at that? Because we're looked at as not having very good.
Strong completion, yeah.
But it's not, I think it's
I mean, there's a lot of, like, industry-wise, there's a lot of conversation about it. There aren't particularly strong ways of measuring employment. And that's sort of the biggest challenge, because that is the best outcome, right, for a student. It doesn't, if they came here to get a couple of courses because it meant they were going to get a job and that's what they wanted, then that is success. It's exceedingly hard to measure, and we don't have good means of doing it. We try, but it's really, really hard to measure. Yeah, it's a big industry conversation. What we do at FLCC, which I think is becoming more common, but it's not every community college does this, is when we look at retention by program, we look at graduation as retention. So we count that as a means of looking at success. And that helps understand, like, at a program level, looking at it. Yeah, I mean, it continues to be something we work on.
It's $1 million question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any,
So I'm curious to know how much of this wonderful data that you collect is shared with our advisory boards.
So, yeah, it's all shared with faculty. I mean, we will, we bring it to you first, but we will, it will be on our site, and we will actually send it out to the faculty. It goes in the news that it's, enrollment reports out, et cetera. Also, all these data are in the data warehouse now, which means over the course of the next 6 to 9 months, more and more dashboards will be built with them, and can be accessed. Keeping in mind, that's really like for a query. It's not analytics, but it is, allows people to look things up heavily and readily. But there's still a need for analyzing the data to make more deeply held. But yes, we do share it. And most of the faculty who run advisory boards use it in their advisory boards. Any other questions?
Feel free to go.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
For this great presentation.
Yeah, don't know.
With that, I will
Entertain a motion.
entertain a motion
I'll make.
to,
So,
and second.
Joan?
Committee.
Mr. Chairman, can we give a 5-minute?
Oh, yes, if you mean.
All in favor? Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
I think.
We're gonna take a 5-minute recess.
Good idea.
Yes.
You know, if another question about.
Okay, take it away.
We'll call to order the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting of December 4th. We will review the minutes, November 6th. Any changes? Seeing none. Jason's already at the podium, ready to go to talk to us about the 23-24 and then the 24-25 budget and updates. Take it away.
Okay. Don't look on the screen. Just a quick update on 23-24. Still a little bit of movement happening. I do feel that we'll probably add approximately 2.9 million to the fund balance. We are still going through the audit, so I will reference that. They are starting this weekend, next. Mainly driven by increase in enrollment last year. They're up 6%. Overall, 8% when we compare it to budget. So we had projected 2% decline. The other driver in this is, I've said in previous meetings, $750,000 in interest income. That was earned last year based on idle cash that we had to take advantage of the high interest rates. So the other thing we look at is expenses. We do budget, full salaries, and vacancies or turnover that does occur, does fall to the bottom line. So just wanted to highlight a few of those things, but really big drivers, enrollment, as well as interest income.
Before we move to the 24-25 questions on the past year 23-24 budget, revenue or expenses?
Just a comment. The fact that we were able to put money back into
Yeah.
the fund, there are other of our colleagues who are still really scrambling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
congratulations on managing that.
I think a lot of community colleges, at least in this, for 23-24, have been adding back the fund balance this year. Mostly on saw increases. I think it's looking back this year. Some are now seeing a decrease again. So I think it could have been seen as a blip for many, but a lot of them had significant decreases in enrollment out of COVID. So during COVID, and I think they had some catch up. So I do see probably some added more to the fund balance than what was initially projected.
Okay.
So that's what really happens.
Thank you. Other questions? Moving on to the present year, nearly 17% of the year is completed.
So in these numbers, look at tuition. It does show that we're up, but again, that's driven by our Gemini registration flip from spring to fall. About 650,000 of that revenue increase is seen because of that Gemini registration change. When you compare it to we have overall FTE increase for the fall is about 1.2%. So, we do see a little bit of an increase compared to tuition year over year, but it is, mainly driven by Gemini. I do expect that will even out as we get to the spring numbers. Once Gemini for spring does, once we get through the enrollment period for Gemini. So.
Does that help cash flow?
Nope, because well, it does a little bit. You have the charges for the fees, fee registration, it comes in, but there is no other large cash flow impact in Gemini. So.
Any concerns or challenges on the revenue side at this point? Do you see?
No, I don't. Actually, Jordan, I'll take that back. Other counties, we did charge back. So we do see a little bit of a pickup in our chargebacks because we're picking that up in the fall versus waiting until the spring. So Right back revenue does go up for those outside of Ontario county. So, but individual students.
Then finally, remind us, our sponsor dollars flow to us when again, typically?
Sponsor dollars will flow to us in February, March timeframe. They typically split that in half. This does not account for the $150,000 increase. Right now, it's not reflected in this budget. They just passed here in November, so that will be reflected in the November report. State aid will get Q2 payments, usually in December, but sometimes it does bleed into January. That's all dependent on what the issue our annual report. So we're looking to finalize that next week. So,
Okay. Expenses.
expenses in line with what we're projecting. Our salary expenses, people with, and look at supply and expenses. Again, tick up in supply and expenses because of our Gemini scholarship for those students. So we see an increase there. Again, 650 that's up in revenue. It's weighted down at 650 down in supply and expenses. So we are seeing a slight increase there because of that. Equipment, we are spending that budget that will continue to tick up as we move through the year. So.
Okay. Questions on the expenses? Before you depart for this portion, anything else you want to add?
Just audit started this week.
Thank you, Jason. Yep. Welcome, Ed. Ed Kelty. Give us a Graham Leach lively.
Yes,
Holy smokes.
we affectionately call it the GBLA.
No, well.
And I know that how much you all love, deep tech talk, right?
Yeah.
So, the college is required to report annually on the GBLA requirements. There, if you read through what's in your packet, there's like 19 pages worth of different things. I'm not gonna go into almost any of that. The bottom line is we have to document these things. We don't actually give this to anyone unless there's an incident or they come and ask for it, and they is pretty much the federal government. So, one of the things that's nice is you are helping me to acknowledge that we accomplished our GBLA for this year, because two of the easiest questions are, who's the primary representative? Me. And did you present to your board? And now I can say I did. Well, that's all you need, I can, so, but the reality is, yeah, I'm glad I got you all to laugh, that's great. So, the thing to keep in mind is that it's ever changing. They're always adding and adjusting requirements of, are you protecting your financial data, the data in your systems, how are you protecting it? And what we have to do is answer each one of these questions and describe what we're doing, and that's what this document does. I don't really need to get into too much detail, but as an example, there's a section that talks about disposal of information, and that's physical disposal as well as document retention. We don't ever throw out the hard drives that come out of computers that go away. We keep them and then clean them and reuse them over and over and over until they're literally dead. Or if they're so old, we would, drill a hole through them, or there's other ways it's supposed to. One of the things that I want to work on, I know a lot of us do, is retention efforts. There are federal, state, and SUNY retention requirements. And then there's more common sense requirements that we all should probably acknowledge and work on. There's a lot of technology that would help us with retention, but we haven't gotten to the point yet to spend time saying, all right, meeting minutes, we're gonna keep them for 7 years and then we're gonna purge them and come up with a methodology for that. It's on the to-do list, but in reality, that's probably a lower priority than some other things that you even heard tonight. So I could go through a lot of these, but if you've had time to look at some of these, there are a couple we're still working on. I know I need to work with Jason on vendor contracts and including some additional cybersecurity language in our contracts. But I'll just say, I'm sure you enjoyed reading it.
Well, knowing my colleagues, I know they've read it.
I'm sure they have. There's something somewhere in your life, but do you have any questions for me that I can look at, or?
George?
Pretty much every financial.
We'll do Rich and Don. Rich?
Do you share this with the county? Does the county care how we're taking care of our financial?
Well, it's my standpoint, it's how we're protecting it from a technology standpoint. Jason and his team are keeping us, efficient on how we spend our money, right? So the county has not asked for this. They have not indicated, our auditors have asked for it before, and they've asked me for some materials that we'll pull out of here for them. No, not the county, but they're welcome to have it.
Don?
Maybe they'll ask.
Yeah, maybe.
In general, and maybe this is everyone, but how many people work on this? I mean, how many people contribute to this? Is it like, this is for everybody?
Yeah, so this is for FLCC, right?
Right.
So,
Anybody who works in IT at FLCC.
well, they didn't all work on it. I would say that last year, we're getting better. Last year, this was a spreadsheet. This year, I feel really good about the overview report. We did not include actual technical issues in here that we wouldn't want to disclose. That's why it's very high level. About 6 or 7 of us worked on it this year in IT, the security team primarily.
Okay.
Next year, I'm going to be engaging other folks, because this really is not just IT. So, Jadale in the financial aid office, Rich, our controller, I mean, those are other folks that we should be engaging because they also touch and are relevant to the compliance of our data. So it'll grow a little bit, but the more we do it, the easier it'll get.
Final questions for that? Ed, final word.
We're doing well. We have areas to work on, but I think we're doing well.
Well done.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
For welcome Jason back up to 2 resolutions and 2 informational items. Please.
2 resolutions. The first one is to approve an amendment to our lease agreement, which will take Art Space 36, where we are currently, and 36, and actually add on for 32. Right, so this will be utilized by Ontario County Arts Council. Wonderful. Came into agreement with them, which they will assist with the additional rent that is issued. So,
Good. Nice, clever.
this will also allow us to, with Art Space, be able to apply for state grants, which then will continue to help fund assist with the Art Space area. So right now, that's that resolution. Any questions there? Okay. The next resolution is to approve a short-term contract for interpreting services with Empire Interpreting Service. We did reach out to several interpreting services on the state contract. Empire actually was still lower than what was on state contract. So we will do a formal RFP. Now, this cost can fluctuate year to year depending on the students that we serve. So we're anticipating this contract won't exceed $15,000 or $10,000.
Questions? Informational items.
Information, this is just to extend our Shine and Sheen contract for Geneva and viticulture. We have posted a part-time cleaner position. Waiting for that to be filled. If we do get that filled, this contract will be terminated or in required time. So
Great name of a company. Love it. High standard. Transfer report.
transfers are mainly within departments. So just reallocating those funds to different departments.
Questions on either resolutions or informational items? Thank you, Jason. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Rich. Second by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Trustee Martin. I'd like to call to order the Board of Trustees meeting for December 4th, 2024. I doubt there, but there's anybody on the line waiting to talk to us?
Someday there will be.
I know.
Is it here? No, sure.
Okay.
Well, today's not the day.
Need a motion to approve the consent agenda minutes and resolutions?
I'll move, George.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Old business. New business. Dr. Knight.
First off, Jason mentioned about the rent for the Space 36. Just want to really highlight that that is really an extension of our strategic plan and success of strategic plan of strengthening that relationship and being out of the community. The Ontario County Arts actually was partnered with us on a float at the Christmas parade last Saturday.
Oh, really?
So FLCC had a truck all lit up on Art Space 36, and Liz Brownell and team did a great job of putting that up, and her husband served as the Grinch. Pretty guy in the back of a trailer in the back of his truck, standing up, and it was a Grinch theme. He was the first Grinch in the list of floats, if you want to call them that. And the kids had a ball harassing the Grinch. But it's that, and then you had about 20 people from Ontario County Arts Association that were marching behind our trucks. Really, really good stuff that's being done with that, thanks to the folks from the art department, Liz Brownell, Deborah Orloff's, but it helps advise, so I want to give credit to for that. We have some changes coming up, and many of you know Cassie Kent, who is our Associate Vice President for Instruction. She's retiring, and she does have a little retirement ceremony. She didn't want to have much, and thankfully Laura had to really twist her arm. So she'll have a torturous 1-hour session in the boardroom on Monday at noon, I believe it is. 11:30. If you're interested in bidding farewell to Cassie, she's been at the college, I think it's 27 years. And did a lot of great work, served as our interim provost 2 years ago as well. And well, we welcome back Beth Johnson in that role, and she was filled the role at Cassie's role previously, so we're in good hands. Just wanted to highlight two things. One of them got brought up briefly a little bit. I am excited about the DLT grant. There's a lot of work to be done on that agricultural grant. If you think about it, what the challenge, one of them that was mentioned is it's difficult when you lose the skills of a teacher that has to have a master's degree in the area that's being taught, and you lose it at Bloomfield High School. It's difficult to replace in these small schools. But what this grant can do, if we can get it straight, is we can share resources, and that same instructor that is at Mid Lakes can be teaching the students at Bloomfield as well, and create enough students to be able to have a course to be able to do things. And it also fits into the requirements that are starting to really come to the forefront for the high schools of regionalization, and that they realize they now have to look at regionalization and sharing resources. And this could really help expedite that for us and make it more advantageous to get things like bill systems going in the future. The second, you heard from our strategic plan how we are supposed to be looking at increasing our non-traditional students, and that's been going on for a while. And we're doing pretty well on that. And Carol and her team have been working on a program to really get our employers on a pilot program to be more connected to them. And one of those is an enticement to give them a course for free if they take a course. And so they're getting ready to market it. And Carol, I don't know if you want to advance anything further, but I think it's important, and it fits our strategic plan on what we're supposed to be doing. And I'm excited about this kickoff.
It also aligns with the 3-year strategic enrollment management plan that's predominantly focused on adult student recruitment and retention. So this is an adult student employer partnership pilot that we're implementing in the spring. We had the opportunity to apply to SUNY for Lumina grant funds for this project. We have received $20,000 for the project and have been working on it in terms of development and implementation since this past summer. There are specific benefits associated with the pilot that we hope to entice employers who have tuition benefit programs for their employees. The specific benefits are deferred tuition billing for their employees, so their employees do not have to pay up front. That upon successful completion of the course, the employer can pay for the course. So there's no out-of-pocket costs for their employees. And then Dr. Nye mentioned BOGO, buy one, get one. And that's one time only. So after successful completion of a course, the individual is eligible to receive the second course for free. And then another component of the pilot that we are about to discuss is employer-sponsored tuition program, where we will promote to students in specific degree programs the opportunity to work part-time with employer partners, with the employer. So the student would work part-time at an employer, and the employer would pay for that student's part-time tuition. So a win-win for the student and the employer. And right now, for phase one of this project, we are focused on manufacturing and healthcare industries, as well as viticulture.
So if
And we will scale it to K through 12 in the spring.
if you're really thinking about it for the non-traditional, specifically for non-traditional learners, that 40% of the people who graduate from high school in the state year over year are not going to post-secondary education. You're out in the industry or you work in some field. At some point, a lot of those folks, if you can help entice them to get started in something, create the new careers or get them started in something else, or if they're in a trade, in a lot of those trades, you get to be 35, 40, 45 years of age and your body's just not able to do the same things as before. How do you get them different skill sets? So let's say you're in a carpentry trade, at some point you're going to want to get into the business side. So how do you help them get into that? So that's part of the non-traditional side of the world.
And we've created pathways from non-credit to credit to show the opportunity beyond non-credit to either get a certificate, micro-credential, or degree. Right now, we get two. Johnson Health has expressed interest in Optimics. So I would be happy with two partners of that stature to begin with.
Just lastly, it is exciting that the program has been submitted. Thank you, Dr. Ortiz, but specifically to Michael Van Etten, the professor, but also the leader of our esports program, where we have it's about 30 students that are competing nationally in the national championships coming up in different games. And you see before that they're doing better in their retention because they've got great cohorts. They stick together. So the new esports program be another we can offer for our students in the future once we get it approved.
So the curriculum, this is what I was trying to figure out, is the curriculum to help people establish? Like, if you took this course or series, you got this degree, you could help establish an esports program somewhere, or is it?
There's a business of esports.
The business of esports.
Or if you'd like to provide any additional details, but it's really about the business of esports that is a growing industry.
Exactly. So it is the marketing, it is the development, it is the promotion, it is leading teams as well.
Okay.
So it is a very broad program. And once we put forth a proposed curriculum, but once it is officially approved, that's when the real curricular work begins.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is that fun thing that goes through SUNY and then SUNY you wait forever for it to get through nice ed.
Perfect. Education. Yeah. Okay.
I report. Thank you. Trustee Hall, student trustee report.
Only two things to report. The first being over the Thanksgiving break, the college hosted a Friendsgiving for students who didn't have the opportunity to go back home for Thanksgiving. So they did make and take meals, or you had the option of dining in with other students. And I'm happy to report that we had 34 students participating, which is almost doubled in previous years. And then secondly, with the help of Dr. Nye and Jenny Ertl from Student Life, I will be able to extend my term into the spring semester. That's all I have to.
Thank you.
Great report.
Trustee Estes, audit and hearing.
Just a couple of things. Jason mentioned that they were just starting the process of getting the audit done. The other thing is we had a meeting Monday afternoon. And Jason presented us with a report of a couple hundred schools that identified what their top 10 vulnerabilities were in terms of risk management. Not surprising, data security was among them, as well as enrollment and funding, and there were others too. And what we're going to do eventually here is take a look at those 10 categories and figure out which ones are most applicable to us and how we do it.
Thank you. Trustee Mahalik, board development.
I have left a message for Penny, you will find when you get back to your office, to set a board development committee meeting for Thursday, January. Yes, the third Thursday in January, so that we can get back on track and we can review the work that Dr. Nye and Trustee Geis did on student success policies so far, and then see where we're going from there.
Okay, thank you. Association report is in the packet. Trustee Guys, Foundation.
I have nothing to report except for you. Do we have a figure from yesterday yet?
We do. I sent out an email. Thank you all for participating in Giving Tuesday yesterday. It was a very successful day because of all of you. I believe it came to all of you in an email this afternoon, but our final total was something around 76,000. Well, it includes the $50,000 challenge. So we surpassed the $25,000.
Excellent.
I'm fine. It's in an email. It's in.
But Bree, could you do one other thing when you're talking about that? You gave numbers today about total dollars and how far ahead we are from last year and the number of donors from last year. That's something to brag about.
Yeah, we're about 40% off in total donations this fiscal year. So we're just about, the foundation's fiscal year runs July 1 to June 30th. So we're almost halfway through our year and we're about 46% up from where we were at the same time last year. So we're at about $700,000 in the door. I think we were at about 480,000 now. Those numbers before me either. Updated total on Giving Tuesday, $86,765. So again, that does include the $50,000.
And almost somewhere between 150 and 200 additional donors last year, at least 150.
Yes, we're going up in total donors as well at this point in time compared to where we were at last year. So a lot of factors contribute to that, but these days, the Giving Tuesday, the Labor Day of Giving, those are the moments when we tend to increase total donors. So it's not necessarily about the dollars that we raise. Well, we're also happy about that. But this is when we acquire new donors, which is really challenging work to do. So we see parents coming in on these days, pools of people who we wouldn't acquire otherwise. So we're very excited and happy that we continue to grow these efforts. And again, thanks to all of you. I think everyone, most of you contributed for this effort and, for the fiscal year, I think everyone.
Thank you. Trustee Cushman, YCCT.
We're busy. With the resolution passed on the issue of the presidential searches, presidential contracts. That is, we do have a subcommittee, it's been a couple of times, and we're working on basically pushing back on that. So that's all I'll say on it. Other than that, it's a lot going on. We do have the ACC meeting. So you have February.
February, I think first week in February.
And so, you know, hopefully, you know, I know I would be attending, Donna, would you? And I don't know if there's anybody else here that would be just for planning purposes, so.
Misty?
Yeah,
Misty.
if there's room available, then I would be interested in that.
Okay. So that's the three of us, anyway, need them.
They were here.
And one thing that, last year, we went on a woman named Anna Quinlan, arranged some meetings for us at the White House, at the Department of Commerce, and at the Department of Labor, all my old office. And I'm working with her about setting up some next one this year. There would be a cost this year, so that would be something. What I'm going to find out is how many people would be interested, what colleges would be interested in, and see if we can kind of split that bill and get that out, because the direct benefits right back to the colleges. If we can open doors to the federal grants that you don't necessarily see when you're running through the website. So let's hopefully forward. So
Sounds like a good investment. We have a very modest and a small budget. Might be an opportunity to tap into some of that here, as you say, spread it amongst other colleges.
right.
And I'd just like to add, I think it was very eye-opening last year, when she, with the offices that she opened for the community colleges to attend, I was astonished. The staffs were like sitting on the edges of their seats saying, oh, we never get to hear from community colleges. It's like, oh, this is fabulous, you know, so they were, one group, one department stayed an extra 20 minutes beyond the allotted time because they were asking us questions about community colleges. So if we can find a way around this, I think it's very exciting service.
We're the only state that I'm aware of that's doing this, so it's nice to be in that the air.
Well done.
It's all under YCC Student Corp. A couple of things I just want to point out, the reports in the package, but I just want to point out that it's really interesting. As I deal more and more broadly with community colleges in the state, I'm more and more appreciative of FLCC. But in particular, the student associations, they went to a session on that, and the bylaws that we have for our student corp are being adopted by a lot of other colleges. They don't have the autonomy, and they're hungry for it. So it's not just community colleges, but there was actually one of our previous student corp members is now head of four-year college. He came up and wanted to get a copy of the bylaws because he thought there was a good, and our guy Dom reminded him, you actually did these, you actually wrote these. So there, but I think it's great that we're setting an example. I still say we out punch for our weight here at FLCC. There was a presentation Jenny Earl Crampton did on online student engagement out in Oregon, and had over 70 college professionals come in. They're hungry for this, and Dr. Knight made a point about the vice president for the student corp last year who was from India, and he was just as engaged as any other student that's on campus. So we are, and it's been a lot of the student work, I think, has helped to drive this. We're way ahead. So there's a real opportunity to take in almost white paper done on this, because I think it could spur other research in this area that would be valuable, plus would bring a lot of attention to the FLCC for what we do. And the last thing is just, it's just striking to me, there was 5 international students that are active on the student board. And I didn't realize there were soccer. I went to see the soccer game. I was really impressed, frankly, and at their level of play. But I think that's just fascinating. What a extraordinary benefit the students at this community college had that wouldn't in my day have had of the international students and being exposed to those different cultures and ways of thinking. So just kudos to the student corps and to FLCC. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just add one more thing for the record and for the minutes pending, and that's an acknowledgement and a thank you to Kathy Ahern and Jason Tack for the life celebration of George Hamlin, one of our community icons. Nearly 300 people graced this campus on the 24th of November, just before Thanksgiving. Many of the folks had never been to campus, and the folks here at FLCC really allowed everyone to shine. And I will tell you, Jason, and certainly Kathy as well, that the family was thrilled, absolutely thrilled that it was at a location of higher education, and the fact that really aligned with George's thinking and philosophy and background. So thanks for everything. There was a lot of work done to make it happen, pull it off, and it's not been lost on us. So please acknowledge and record that.
Thank you for letting us know.
Thanks.
You'll need a motion to go to executive session to discuss.
Sure, I might. So my name is Steve. I'd like to just give a recognition, and I know I'm going to mess up her name. Her name is Brittany, and I think it's Garlia. But she works in the library at FLCC. And I just called the library to find out if they had any kind of exchange program with Cornell, which she didn't know. But I explained what I was looking for, which is personal genealogy information. And she went to work. And she's been working with the Cornell Library, and they're actually thinking now beyond what I would have asked for, of taking microfiche records from the 1800s, digitizing them so that I can have it on a hard drive, and then I've got it. But just her willingness, her attitude was terrific. So some recognition to her.
Great to hear.
I just wanted to make one comment. I've been keep where to put this in the meeting today, but when you talked about art space and the collaboration with Ontario and arts, when we presented at the ACCT conference on our strategic grants plan, and some people were intrigued by art space and said, "Oh, are you having your hospitality department work with art space to make that more of an event space with your viticulture program and all these other things that you're doing? It would seem like a perfect community spot to do that." And now we have this wonderful collaboration. I'm just wondering, is there a way that we could have the hospitality department create some community related events, Mother's Day events, or I don't know, something that is community based, but would be a combination of both our art students and hospitality?
Should look into it. Go ahead.
They just hosted an event recently along those lines. It was a paint and sip.
Oh, yes.
So they had an artist, sort of like Pico's palette type of an event, but it was our Gina who did the wine, and so it was open to the community, and we had many participants. So I do think, especially with the added space, right now, it's tiny, but, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Okay.
The other, we've served wine there for other events too. We've actually had food, I know at least once in that location. And part of the desire is to make it not just hospitality wise, but interdisciplinary in terms of the types of activities. And there's been some wonderful events that weren't art related, but they were literature related.
Oh, yes.
I just
I've
went,
been to one there, yes.
I just went to Fall Lights, and it was amazing. And there were, the alums came back, like, it was a big event, and it was, poetry and music.
Absolutely. I just thought for outsiders,
Yes.
looking at what they felt were extremely creative ideas that FLCC was doing, for them to say, well, there's this perfect opportunity for you to, take all this. I just wanted to make sure that we would be continuing to do that.
Anybody else?
I mean, it's sorry. Couldn't help myself.
Go ahead. Now we'll ask for a motion to go to executive session to discuss matters regarding the employment history of a particular person or matters leading to the employment of a particular person pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, New York Public Officers Law, Article 7, 105.
So with it.
Mr. Chair, normally I'd had the cabinet involved, but there's no need for the cabinet for this one, so.
Very short. Disappointed me.